Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, absolutely.
And I suppose in the same way, many people who are managed by finger pointing, standing managers who ask, what were you thinking? And that sort of thing. Eventually they give up too, and they move on and they leave, they quit the company, and they go decide to work, hopefully, for a different kind of manager, or at very least a different human being.
Part of that is the manager's fault, and part of that is their fault. They were never trained in how to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Which it may not be anything they can do, but it may be. I was thinking of error messages. One of them, I was working with a test group, and they had this program which was searching a big database. And if it couldn't find the thing, it would just sit there with the little search symbol spinning around, sit there and sit there. And I said, well, that's not very good. And they said, well, you know, after a certain amount of time, the people will realize they couldn't find it, and they'll exit the program.
Oh, sure.
It's the message you got that you just spent an hour looking at the screen and we didn't find anything.
Right.
Because they know computers faster than that. So,
you know, I have worked with managers who had that exact same style of feedback. They would start slowly. For example, I would ask them, you know, do you have anybody in your team who you feel is, you know, you're not happy with their work or whatnot? And they would always have someone. And I would say, well, you know, what feedback have you given them? And they would say, well, I've not been giving them good assignments, and I've canceled our weekly meetings, so they should get the hint. They should know how I feel about them.
Besides which, even though it's middle of January, we'll have an annual review next December, and then I'll tell them.
I'll bring that up then. And I know that they know what's going on. Mm-hmm. I don't have to spell it out.
They should know.
That's the thing. They should. And if they don't, what does that mean about? Well, are they stupid or clueless or checked out? Maybe they just don't care.
That's interpretation.
I was going to say that's interpretation from data, right?
So when someone comes at you with an interpretation, okay, like that's Danny's phone ringing. Someone at the gate. Someone, mind your manager, and I say to you, Marcus, you're just not dedicated to this project.
Mm-hmm.
No, you don't say, mm-hmm. You say, oh, what did you see or hear that led you to that interpretation?
That's something I think everyone can do.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Well, you should be able to, but
wow.
They have a hard time. They get probably maybe depend on their early training with their mother or their father or maybe their kindergarten teacher. They think that you can't say anything back. You know, you just have to say mm-hmm or something, nod your head like you're doing, which looks like you're accepting what I'm saying.
It sure does. I'm giving an external confirmation, probably hoping to avoid conflict with someone at a higher power than I am, so that I don't get have a bigger problem for being disrespectful or whatever fear I have running around in my head.
Mm-hmm. So this is what we call the data question, and you can ask this anytime you think someone is going directly to interpretation. It doesn't have to be a feedback to you. I mean, we could be sitting there trying to fix a program, and somebody says something about the program. Well, I think this loop is covering the wrong array. And you say, what do you see there that led you to that conclusion?
And so just to go back, we've got the data phase, the interpretation phase, and the significance phase, right? So if people are talking to us about interpretation, the words you're using allow us to move back to the data phase to understand that.
Now, complicating all this, we're just starting to touch on that. That's a reasonably congruent interaction.
Hold it.
Sometimes the person hits the wall.
What does congruent mean in this case?
It means that what's going on inside and what's going on outside is kind of matches.
Matches. Oh, because I hear you in your writing, you use this word a lot. I see. And so if my insides and my outsides are congruent, like two congruent lines are moving in the same direction, they're matching each other.
So, but for example, we could start an interaction and you say, I think that they're using the wrong array in that program. Or not even I think, it's just they're using the wrong array. And I'm going to say, well, goddamn you! What do you think I don't know how to program? What do you haven't programmed for many years and you think you know what's going on, and why don't you just leave us alone? Now that didn't seem very congruent. It didn't fit with what you were saying. You're talking about the program, suddenly I'm accusing you of all kinds of stupidity and wrong motivation and so on. People blow up sometimes in interaction. Mm-hmm. Okay, why does that happen? Because there's something, when you get down to the significance of it, right? My significance that I make of it, that triggers some rule that I have.
Some rule?
Or some survival rules. So something very important. Like I have a rule. If I have a rule, I must always be perfect. And it's like a matter of survival. So that when you question whether this program is working with the correct array, I wrote the program. It touches, I go right through my interpretation. Meaning is you're criticizing me for making a mistake, which means you think I'm not perfect, and boom.
Very high significance, really explosive.
Yeah, and when that happens, you've got to get back on track, right? And you can't, and of course it may trigger some survival rule of yours. It's like, I must never make people angry.
Right.
And
so then you just don't.
And then what do you do? The different things you do when your survival is at stake. You can either blame some other person for it, or you can try to placate them and say, oh, I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. Oh, I'm so terrible, and you never should have hired, right? Or you can just freeze up and not be able to do anything, right? Or you can go irrelevant, where you just do some crazy thing. And I'll show you that. You try to tell me that there's something wrong with this program I wrote.
Your query's wrong. We were getting it's way too slow.
The moon isn't really made of green cheese. It's made of blue cheese, like Roquefort cheese with a lot of little stripes in it and stuff. And you can see the stripes. You go out and look even during the day.
I remember. Of course, you've changed things so much, I can't even continue.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
It's a good defense, right?
It's a good defense.
If I think I'm being attacked.
That's right. Now I don't even know how to continue. We can't talk about the code. All I want to do is respond to the cheese comment.
Yeah. See, that's what the irrelevant response. And you just take it to a whole different place, and it confuses the person. These are techniques you use in fighting physically. They're all martial arts techniques, translated. They're techniques that animals use in their defense. Different animals tend to defend. And each of us has characteristic ways that I individually tend to respond when I feel I'm being attacked. Mm-hmm. That's my interpretation, of course, is that I might not really be being attacked. You may be about to compliment me on the program. Maybe the next thing out of your mouth is, Well, look, I first looked at it, I thought it was really stupid. And then I realized what a clever program it was. See, but I never get that far with you, because as soon as I hear you say you thought it was stupid, that's my rule, and now we're not in a normal conversation anymore.
So you and I have talked about this before. We have these rules like I must always be perfect. And if we recognize that we have a rule about I must always be smart, I must always be right or perfect or whatever it is, survival rules, how do we, that's kind of our meta, that's kind of our programming in some ways.
That's how we program ourselves, actually.
So how can we go about altering our own software?
Like you do any software that has an error in it.
A bug, yeah, an error.
I don't want to say bug. If you have an error, is you reprogram it.
Is this going to involve crystals? Are we going to light a candle, or a chicken's going to be killed? I mean, is this like a mystical thing?
No, it's very straightforward reprogramming. I can do it here sometime for you. We can do this one of our sessions.
We should. It actually frightens me a little bit. I feel...
Well, that's the first step in the process to make sure you feel safe. Because what the process is it's like if you're going to have a program that's working quite the way you want it to work, and one of the things you can do is try patching it up. But another thing you can do is throw it away and start a whole new program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But that's not the only things you can do. You can also put it away, have it there, and then try to make a new program. And if it doesn't work for you, you just go back to the original.
Sure.
So that's the first thing you do. So we're going to reprogram a survival rule that I have. I have to be reassured that I still can always go back to the other rule if I need it. It's better survival. I can't just,
Yeah, you can't do without it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a survival rule.
Yeah, it's like if I told you, well, Marcus, you have many pounds you're carrying around. You're going to have to lose some weight. So you're going to go on a special diet for 1 month. You're not going to eat anything for a month. You'll certainly lose weight, right? You have to agree.
Certainly.
All right, so why aren't you doing it?
Because it violates the survival rule that says that will cause me a lot of harm.
And maybe die if you do.
And maybe die, right. Could kill me.
So of course you don't accept it, right? And you might try it, but you're not really into it.
No.
So it's the same way. So you have these rules, and you have survived to this age, right? So something about your set of rules that you have, the programs that you've made for yourself,
they're working.
They're not working or something. I hate when people say about a program, say, well, it works. It's not doing what it's supposed to do, but it's not doing a good job of it. But it's not crashing, right? So you haven't died so far applying your rules. So you get to keep them all. Transform it into another alternative program, which is a guideline, right? And then you say, well, I can try to be perfect in a lot of circumstances, but there are other cases where it'll be okay not to be perfect. You work in that direction. It's pretty straightforward to do. And I've done it dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Virginia Satir taught me how to do this. And then she's watched me do this. And she said, I do this better than any psychologist she's ever seen, because it's programming. And that's what I know how to do.
Right.
It's basically running a program. It's like when you're 4 years old and your mother says to you, you're making me angry, Marcus. You're making me angry. And you can hear, well, so she's teaching you that you're capable of controlling the emotions of other people.
Mm-hmm.
You get that message.
That's a lot of power.
And she's teaching you must not do this. You must never make anybody angry. And then you become this wimp, right?
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
Well, So we program that. If that's your rule, first we find out, make you feel safe. You can quit at any time. Keep the old rule. There's nothing. We'll get rid of it. You just have a second rule that you can do, a guide, and then we start transforming it step at a time into something more reasonable. It's very straightforward. You can read about it in Becoming a Technical Leader. It gives a little bit of information.
Yeah.
But I think you have to kind of see it performed. I mean, when people, I think you can ask Johanna, for example. I think we did that with her on a rule or two. And it's like, if it isn't you that's doing it, it's hard to believe. It's like you couldn't possibly have done that in a minute.
Well, we should try this. I'm actually both excited and very apprehensive, but I trust you. You and I have been talking now for a year very regularly. But this seems like this is deep stuff. And so, yeah, this
problem. It isn't.
Say that again?
It isn't deep stuff. It's like you wrote a program for yourself when you were 4 years old. You didn't write it down on paper or anything, but you wrote it into your memory, right? And you've been using that program for all these years, right? But it was written by a 4-year-old. Now, if somebody came to you and said, look, Marcus, we got this program that'll do all your accounting for your taxes and everything, and it was written by a 4-year-old. What would you think?
Well, certainly I'd purchase that program. That would give me a lot of confidence. And maybe right now I'm even thinking about how I approach a lot of things. I have rules, for example, maybe I'm not thinking about it right, but how I approach engineering problems. Do I procrastinate? Do I wait till the last minute? Do I break it into little pieces? Do I have to do the whole thing? When do I show people along the way, or do I have a big reveal? I don't know.
And these rules can be the most trivial things. Like, I think I told you about my rule about don't waste Kleenex.
That's right, you did. That's a new piece, it looks like.
Well, it's half used. See, I'm violating the rule. I've got a guide. And if there's a lot of good stuff, still looks pretty good, then keep it. But that wouldn't be too threatening. But you don't know, because it's a survival rule when you talk about it. So after that you feel safe, let's say you had a rule that said don't waste Kleenex. Okay, you probably don't have such a rule.
I don't have that rule.
Something similar to that. It's just kind of a little thing.
I have a rule that says don't waste coffee.
Okay, don't waste coffee. Okay, and it probably originates similarly to the Kleenex rule for me. I was back in the Depression. Kleenex was expensive. You had to pay cash for it, as opposed to using a hanky where you would go into laundry. And so coffee is expensive. Right?
It is, yeah. And I run out from time to time, and then I'm sad.
And then it's bad. So somehow you program yourself to think, don't waste coffee. Okay. Which has probably gotten you drinking some awful cups of coffee.
Yes, it has.
Cups of
That's
coffee
right.
with a cigarette butt floating in it.
Well, maybe not, but microwaving them repeatedly and nursing them all day long. And
okay. So what you do, see, when I gave you an example of, you got a half a cup of coffee and you put out a cigarette in it, you probably could violate your rule.
That's right. Then you could.
Okay. So you already see that this is not going to be one of the worst things in the rule. But I test it out to see if it's really a survival rule. Because it may just be a kind of a principle that you have. So I would say to you, okay, let's suppose you wasted a cup of coffee, a whole cup of coffee. What would happen?
Well, I would feel a certain way about it. My mouth actually feels funny talking about it, but
what would happen?
Well, nothing would happen.
Nothing would happen.
Well, I would have, I would have fewer beans, but if I've already made the coffee.
Feel a certain way about it, though.
I would feel a certain way about it.
No.
I would feel wasteful. I would feel like I wasn't utilizing the resources that I had properly.
You probably have another rule that's even deeper than the coffee about wasting resources.
Could be.
And that's one of the things that happens when you transform rules is you may reveal other rules, right? Like if you have a perfection rule, I must not only not waste coffee, but I must do it perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what was the slogan of Folgers, good to the last drop.
That's right. I'm actually checking, do I have any coffee left? No, I don't. Okay.
So you'd feel wasteful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you felt wasteful, what would happen?
Well, then I should feel ashamed because we didn't grow up with much. And
would you feel ashamed?
I would feel a little bit ashamed. Yeah.
And if you feel ashamed, what will happen?
Well, if I feel ashamed, then I will, then I'll probably start telling myself that I am not very good, or I'll start blaming myself.
So if you tell yourself you're not very good, what will happen?
Well, then the whole day easily spirals down, and it's very hard for me to write or speak or be productive if I feel like I'm no good.
So I won't be productive. If I won't be productive, you waste the whole day, what will happen?
We might as well have just stayed in bed. That's just a cardinal sin. One must be productive.
See, this is another rule coming up. So if you stayed in bed all day, what would happen?
You're only allowed to do that if you're sick. That's unthinkable. What would happen if I stayed in bed all day? Well, I would feel awful about myself. And I can hear my mother saying, people who stay in bed all day feel really bad. They just, they don't have any energy, and
So you feel really bad. What would happen?
I don't know. I'm not sure. What would happen if I felt really bad? I probably would eat a lot more and watch Netflix and find other ways to placate myself.
Eat a lot more, what would happen?
Oh, then I get even fatter than I am now.
And if you got even fatter and fatter, what would happen?
Oh, well, then I'd be right back to where I was a couple of years ago, miserable, constantly beating myself up for being too fat.
And if you're constantly beating yourself up for being too fat, what would happen?
Well, then other people are going to laugh at me, and I can hear.
Oh, people laugh at you, then what would happen?
Well, then, and my health might be bad, but mostly I just don't, I can't respect myself. Other people don't respect me.
And if other people don't respect you and you respect yourself, what would happen?
Well, they're certainly not going to buy anything from me, and I'll be like a homeless person. I won't have any money because people don't buy stuff from other people they don't respect.
When you don't have any money, what would happen?
I'd lose my home and probably all these books I have, that big TV over there, all my stuff.
You will lose all your stuff, what would happen?
I guess I'd be homeless.
And if you're homeless, what would happen to you?
I might as well just die.
Okay.
I feel like you knew that was coming, but we took the long route.
It doesn't always go. That's how I find it. Dig down. That's why it becomes a survival rule.
I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
It's okay with you and your rules, and it's okay to be uncomfortable. But see, eventually it goes that way, or maybe somebody gets down upon, well, if I lost everything, I'd start over and that'd be okay. See? And then it's not a survival rule, it's just an idea that you have. Like I should wear a clean shirt every day. Okay, if you don't do that, what would happen? Well, people might see dirt on my clothes. And they might not, well, it'll be okay. It's not a survival rule.
I definitely don't have a survival rule about wearing a different pair of pants every day, for example.
Okay. Well, okay, but the coffee, at bottom, look at all that crap that it triggers.
That was a lot of crap, wasn't it?
Okay, so then we know if it's a survival rule. Now we could start working on the rule. Right? That I must never waste coffee. Is that it?
Well, I feel like now that rule seems very mild compared to many of the others.
And this often leads to uncovering I must never waste resources generally, and so on.
Be productive and be thin and good looking and perfect and
But you can work on them one at a time.
good.
And sometimes you have to switch from the one you were working on to the more general one or the deeper one, like I must be perfect. Sometimes you go, well, I must transform this rule, but I have to do it perfectly.
Hmm.
And then that one you run into a lot. But we could now do something. Write down, I must never waste coffee. Or,
All right, I'll do that. Let me get a pen. I'm going to write it down. Okay.
and sometimes it's easier if we put it in a more positive form, like I must always use all coffee.
Okay.
Okay, does that feel?
I must always, we'll call it finish the coffee. How's that?
Finish the coffee. Okay, that's good.
Okay.
All right. So now say that out loud.
I must always finish the coffee.
How does that sound? About right?
Yeah. It sounds like what I do each day. Sometimes, frankly, whether or not I'm in the mood for coffee, that's a little irrelevant.
No, because it's the rule driving you, all right? It's a rule that you wrote sometime earlier in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now, where you've written down, I must always finish coffee, cross out the word must and write the word can.
I can always finish the coffee.
Say that again.
I can always finish the coffee. That's not quite true. It doesn't feel right. I can't always finish the coffee.
That's to feel funny, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Smile at this.
I mean, I can think of 10 reasons right now I can't finish the coffee.
Okay, so change the always to sometimes.
I feel like we should have done should, but I'm going
to.
Okay. I can sometimes
finish the coffee.
Finish the coffee. If you're watching along with us, I hope you at least have a cup of coffee while you wait through this. So I can sometimes finish the coffee.
I must never drink coffee.
That's your rule?
I've never had a cup of coffee in my life.
I don't know what to think about that.
Well, I never see. I obey your rule. I've never not finished a cup of coffee.
You waste no coffee. That's right. Okay, so I can sometimes finish the coffee. That seems very true. I've seen that to be true.
Yeah, and when can you finish the cup of coffee?
I can finish the coffee when I remember to, because the pot's downstairs. Sometimes I forget. Mm-hmm. I can finish the coffee when I feel like drinking coffee, mm-hmm. Which isn't all the time. Mm-hmm. I can sometimes finish the coffee when I haven't left the house in the mid-morning, mm-hmm. left it behind. So
read all that out loud.
I must always finish the coffee.
No. Just the last.
Okay.
And the when stuff.
I can sometimes finish the coffee when I remember and I'm around and it's hot and I feel like it.
And I feel it and I want it.
And I want it, yes.
How's that? I've just transformed your rule.
I need to finish writing. I didn't write my when statements. When I...
Add later, too.
Sorry, what was that?
Add to those when statements later, too, if you think of some other circumstances. But
I'm going to just, as a placeholder, write the when I want it and when I remember.
Yeah, and it may be, when it's not poisoned.
Sure, for sure. When it is not poisoned.
Yeah,
when a doctor hasn't told me not to drink coffee, things like that.
When I want to includes a lot of stuff. When it tastes good, mm-hmm. when it's still warm or hot or whatever. I don't know, maybe you like iced coffee, so I don't know really anything about coffee drinking. So I can't advise you on this, but you come up with that. So how does that feel compared with I must always finish coffee?
It feels as though it's something that works for me rather than against me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I have some amount of control versus being enslaved to it.
Yeah, and doesn't prevent you from finishing some coffee anytime you want to.
That's the key. Now, I can imagine that people have in their mind all kinds of rules.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking of some other ones I have. So in this way of transforming and reprogramming ourselves, what do we do? So now I feel like I have some source code here. I'm not sure how to run it. I'm not sure what to do with it.
Just read it out loud a few times and maybe write it down and put it on your desk for a while, and see what happens. But generally what happens is you feel different now when you say the statement. And that will guide you. You reprogrammed yourself. When you say it out loud, the original rule, it doesn't make sense anymore.
Mm-mm.
Right?
I mean, I suppose since in theory we talk about many things on this little program, but software being one of them, I must always write error-free code. I don't know if anybody believes that, but
Will do.
I can always write error-free code.
They can't. That's what they start laughing when they do the can.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I can't do it. They say, I got this rule, I have to do it, and I can't do it. Well, okay, but I can do it sometimes, when I try hard and I'm careful and I use the tools and I nudge. Sometimes it comes out perfect, and then that's okay. And this is when I can do it, but I can't always do it. But
I can, yeah. So there's, we just kind of.
It's like if you have write a program to a computer, whatever computer you have there. Just enter this, what language are you using? What language do you prefer?
These days, I think I use Python mostly.
So if you write an instruction in Python that says, what is the meaning of life? What happens?
If that's what the instruction says, the compiler doesn't understand it.
So it doesn't do it.
It doesn't even give me 42 or anything.
It isn't the perfect program.
Right.
Right. Well, the same thing. When you give yourself instructions that you can't do.
But my compiler doesn't throw a compile time check or error in my brain. It waits for a runtime error that suppresses it or something.
Well, that's the same thing with you. If you're sitting, you're walking down the street, you're not perseverating over cups of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Finishing them, you're doing other things. Right? You're playing with your children, you're not thinking about coffee. But then you oh my God, you notice there's a coffee cup and you haven't finished it.
Right.
Then you start to go for it and you think, wait a minute, that was the old program.
Ah.
Yeah, do I really want it?
Okay, so we're going to put this to the test. Downstairs, there's this much coffee in a pot. Mm-hmm. And the whole time my brain has been saying, when you're done, go put that in here and put it in the microwave and you can finish it. Not because I really wanted it, but because of the principle that I live under. So I'm going to attempt to use this new program and go dump the pot and rinse it. And we'll see how that feels.
Yeah, that's the test. That's what you do with programs, right?
That's right. That's what we do.
You do a certain amount of desk checking and then you try running it.
I think I'm ready to try running this.
And the program the new program allows you to sometimes finish your coffee. So maybe this time will be the right time to finish.
Maybe I'll get down there and ask myself if I want to run the new program.
Or maybe, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I guess either way, the fact that I'm asking is running the new program.
Right, exactly, because it's a guide.
It's a guide.
Running your guide. It doesn't tell you what you have to do, I guess, is to run the guide.
Is to run the guide. Run the guides. So do people who start to think in this manner and start to actively reprogram and create, move from rules to guide, from must to can sometimes, things like that, it seems like I would have a great number of 3x5 cards sitting around my desk of different new guides I was trying.
Just you keep a journal
Mm-hmm.
where, as you just did, of several other possible rules. Write them down, and then you can work on that. Are they these survival rules? Am I compelled by them to behavior that doesn't always fit? Or they're just, well, okay. I like to finish the coffee, but
now, if you're if someone is watching and you're a technical leader or manager because that's what you thought you were getting today, and you didn't know you were in for a coffee episode or reprogramming and guides, I do think that we ought to maybe say, maybe you don't want to jump into just reprogramming your team. Like, start with yourself. Is this a self?
You don't reprogram. I didn't reprogram you. You reprogram.
I reprogram me, right?
You see that? I mean, you wrote the rule we first thought, survival rule. First gave you a certain amount to make sure you felt safe. And you try writing it down, and we maybe refactored it a little bit to put it in a little easier form.
Right.
It really was the form that got you. Sometimes that's a difficult thing.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't too difficult this time. Then we said, okay, well, what would happen if we changed the can imperative? I mean, the must to can, and the always to sometimes. Soften it. What happened when you feel it? And it's only you. I can't tell whether that's the right step, but you could feel that it was the right step. You start smiling.
I was going to say, that's how you could tell.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh yeah, isn't that silly? All right. I can always write a perfect program.
I even doubt that I could ever write a perfect program, but I could write a better program than I do today. Maybe. When? Sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that would include things like when it's worth the effort. I mean, maybe this program is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to make. I was just writing about that this morning about design. Now, first the idea of not always optimizing everything in a program. People do it in a compulsive way. And then, well, sometimes I could try to, sometimes it will be fitting to optimize a certain part of a program. Like when I write a program to predict the weather, today's weather, and it takes 3 days to run.
Right.
Probably.
That needs a little bit of optimization, right? Where it's useful. But you're right, that idea of I do see compulsive optimization is sort of an engineered trait I've seen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, even to the point where there's no questioning about why, what's the goal, how much will it cost, what's it worth, things like that.
Yeah, we used to do that. It was very interesting. When Ken Iverson, who invented APL, was teaching the IBM Systems Research Institute, and he was new when he was teaching it. He would give us problems and say, okay, here's how we write this. Here's a way to write this, but can you write a better way? Right? Optimize the writing of it. In this case, it was always, can you write it in fewer instructions?
So that's what optimized meant?
Well, that was the particular optimizing we were trying.
Yeah.
I was doing it as a learning technique, to really see what the language had. Until another student and I, Wolf Hellreich in Germany, brilliant guy, sat down and we proved that you could write any APL program in one statement.
Very long statement?
Well, it could be long, but in any case, it could always be done in one statement. It's like kind of like Turing machine. You could write any program with a Turing machine.
Right.
So that took away Ken's teaching technique, which was to say, okay, can you write this in fewer statements? Yes, we can write it one statement. We have a mechanical way to do it. In fact, we could write an APL program that could reduce your program to one statement. And we could write that program in one statement.
Right. Wow. And to think people don't use APL a lot anymore, do they?
Well, a lot of people do.
Is that right?
You don't see them, but like I find a lot of actuaries, for example, use APL. Anyway, so then we said, okay, so can you write in fewer characters?
Oh, so that became the new challenge.
And this became a kind of a disease among APL people. Literally, you could freeze a whole shop. You'd go in there, everybody's working, and you write down a piece of paper, and you'd say, can you write this in fewer characters? And everybody in the place would start working on it. I never proved that you could write any program in one character.
In one character, yeah. Well, that's good.
Zero characters.
You kept the challenge alive for them.
But it's still done all over the world. It was a teaching technique, and it's an interesting one, but you've got to stop at a certain point.
Right.
You go into writing APL with the idea, I have to write in the fewest characters possible. You've optimized that, but then you have not optimized the comprehensibility of it, usually.
That I could imagine. And so let's talk about this for a second. You have I just bought it myself, a new book on design. It's got a really nice rainbow on the front, right? It's available on LeanPub, and you're doing it in an incremental fashion, which I'm excited about.
Right.
And so today happens to be January 25th. I bought my copy today. I think it went on sale in the last couple of days. So, and what's the title of it?
It's called Systems Design Heuristics.
Okay.
I just realized a lot of people may not know the word heuristics. They're just guides that you could use while you're designing things. I'm attacking it. I'm not telling you, like, this is how you design a program to do this, or this is how you do. But I'm telling you, these are things you want to think about when you're designing. Right? Tests you can apply to your design, your thoughts, tests you can apply to your thinking. Excuse me. And you bought it, you paid $10 for it.
I did.
And that gives you a lifetime subscription to it. I'm going to be adding to it probably next week. I've already got some new chapters ready. Next week, the price will go up and more chapters will be added. But you get them for no additional cost.
So if you're watching this is the time to buy.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you're concerned about.
That's true.
If you spend a little right now, you can watch it develop, which will be interesting, because the design of the book itself, the process of designing it, may prove interesting to some people.
Mm-hmm.
People are always asking me how you design a book. Yeah, well, this is one way. Not the only way, but it's one way to do it.
I think you actually wrote on the LeanPub introduction page a little bit about that and why you chose this way.
So it's kind of like, it's a matter of congruence again. You know, like it was always a problem for me. Like, I have written a book on how to do experiential training.
Mm-hmm. A series, in fact.
Well, but I have a class that I've given, and it's an experiential class, and that's congruent. Writing a book about it is not really that congruent.
You don't do that class anymore, unfortunately, right?
Well, I haven't. I might someday, but I'm not doing any classes right now. Except this might be a class. I don't know. But I mean, I just haven't got the stamina to go on for days and days. But that was, so I thought, if I'm writing a book about design, I'll get the design of the book at the same time. So we'll see how that works out.
I look forward to seeing it. It's been great to chat. Thank you so much, Jerry, for that we could chat today. And
I want to invite some feedback. So have you looked at the book, or you just bought it?
I looked at the cover.
Okay. All
I
right.
haven't. I have not even read a page.
Okay. Well, that tells me something. That's also feedback, right? Okay.
I do have it open in a browser window, which means, well, not a whole lot, but in theory, it's like a placeholder for something I hope to do in the next day or two.
Okay. Well, we'll watch this every week and see if it's actually right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today on another episode of Why Do We Need a Name, which is right now the name of this series. And we are in a new YouTube channel. So if you're watching us, you must have found it. And look forward to putting out something next week. And we do want their questions, right? So if you're watching, feel free to send your questions.
Well, their feedback generally.
Yes.
These are one form. If they want to tell us that we're full of crap, that's fine. And we would apply the data question and say, what did you see or hear on anything that made you think we're full of crap?
I would love to hear that. That's right. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. This was great. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. I'll stop the recording.